So we left off last week. We covered Aleph and Bays of this chapter on Rina, and he. So we'll keep going on it. But what Rav Shimshon is doing is really sort of developing this idea of what is Rina, this sort of introductory parts of davening, and how do we approach it through. We talked last week about Simcha, and he's going to continue in that vein as to what that means as we think about Tefilah. So he says, "V'hinei hayesod harishon shel hatfilah hi emuna." He says, right, the primary foundation of davening is belief, is emuna, right? So he says, "Hainu lahamin sheyish bori laolam l'dash bori hu mitzius kayemis ma'asis mamashis v'chaylo pesuch mecho mitzius acheres hamukeres ladu." He said that the first step is that we believe in Hashem, and we believe that Hashem has the ability, the tangible ability to be behind the world, to keep everything going, and to control the world, and beyond anything else that we recognize. Right? It's not that there's other forces. Right? That's really it. Adayin inza muvana miti shel ha'amuna shahari etzem ha'kar shabori nimsa eno begeter amuna. But he says, but let's take a step back. If all we're doing is we're simply acknowledging the fact that there's God, he says, is that really amuna? He said, that really isn't. That's just the first step. Elahi yediyah pshuta haniris be'alil lachol mish eno suma gamor. He says, really, believing in God is just a simple idea that is very clear to anybody who's not completely blinded themselves. V'es shira sa'olam la bore rak cheresh gomer eno shomea. And he says, sort of poetically, he says, in the song of the world is clear to anybody who's not completely deafened themselves to it, to hearing it. And he says clearly, absolutely, there are plenty of people out there who will not recognize, will not see, will not hear that there's God. But anybody's already opened their eyes, it's clear to them what the truth is. You look around, you say, who created all of this? This is a simple raya. This is just simply how we would look at the world around us. It's not amuna. So what is amuna? He says, if that doesn't cut it. Ella hamuvan hamiti shalmuna hu lamin shecholasu yisbarachu he bilti balastachlis. He says, what emuna really is that we have to say is that we have to understand that Hashem has the ability without anything else, without any specific goal in mind, without anything else that would prevent anything else from happening. Lamin b'mashe'ein koach bepeh la'omra v'lo ba'ozen l'shoma v'lo b'lev ha'adam la'kiro aburov, and to believe that there'd be nothing else to say or nothing to hear, to understand that this is all from Hashem. V'alkein kasher lev ha'adam kaved alav machmas ezot tzara harovetzes alav v'uatzuv v'miyush. Okarav lakach mipnei sheledato eno en litzarasav pitron hari beemes chisaron gadol yishkan beemuna. He says, so if that's the case, just sort of looking at this logically, then he says, at that point, if there's a person who is going through a very difficult time, right? Something is like his language is, you've got a tzara that's crouching on you, right? That's pressing you. That's really difficult, and you have given up hope that there's nothing that there's nothing around you that is going to be able to solve this intransigent problem that you've got. Then you have a problem, that you have a lacking of emunah. Because if you believe that Hashem has solutions, that what appears to us, right, that it's that there's nothing else that we can physically do. Hashem has plenty of other ways of saving us, of pulling us out from the entanglement that we're in. Hashem has great power, that and that's what Amunah is, that we ourselves, in our own limited capacities, we don't see that there are answers out there, that there are solutions. And to Hashem, there's something that there's no boundaries. There's nothing that would stop him. So he says, "Mashal lechole mesuka nashochev al eres dvei atzuv shaver benafsho biyodo sharofim his yaishu mechayev." He says, the mashal is to do a sick person in lying in the hospital bed, who is in a very difficult situation, and he has realized that even his own doctors have given up on his life. But then he hears that there's a specialist that is that is actually that understands the specific ailment, and that's his specialty of what this person is going through. And that person is coming to town. He said just hearing that in his ears will give him hope and give him simcha. Just knowing that there's somebody who might be physically present, who could be helpful. Even if he doesn't know if this doctor would even agree to see him. But this is the essence. This is the initial hope that we have. Even if it's in doubt. That there is now a possibility, right? The fact that he's given up goes away, because there is now even a slight possibility that he could be cured. It's a similar, mashal of somebody who's got this huge loan that's coming due very quickly, a lot of money. He has no idea how he's going to be able to get his hands on that large sum of money in order to pay it off, and it's coming up very quickly. Same thing, if he knows it's somebody who's very wealthy, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a relative, somebody who actually has the means to pay it off, is close by, even if he has no idea whether this person would actually do so or not, still that ping of hope enters into your mind. Even if you have no idea whether he would actually save you or not. So if those people, the person who's ill, the person who has this huge loan, if they are ma'aminim, he says that if those people are about Maimed, if they believe in God, then true emunah, then even without knowing whether Hashem is going to, or how or what or if or whatever, just this idea that, yeah, I'm in a difficult place, but Hashem's got all the answers, all the means, all the possibilities, right? There's nothing that's preventing this problem from being solved in one way or another. Even if, again, we don't know that it will, and I think that's an important piece to this. He's not saying that we're in a difficult strait and Hashem is always going to save us if we simply ask for it. He's not saying that, but what he's saying is that it gives us hope just knowing that that Hashem is out there, and he does have the ability to help, to save, to change the situation. says v'kori lifamim etzo hamami b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu shomei tefillah. So kaasher meik lo davar mar shofich hu mar sicho lifnei Baruch k'misha shofich umizmarmar lifnei ohavo. And he says it happens. It happens periodically that when you believe in Hashem and that Hashem listens to our tefillahs, that when you have something that's really pressing, that's really a difficult situation, that you will have that conversation with Hashem, just like he said, similar to that you might, sort of pour out your heart, your bitterness to a friend or to somebody else who's a loved one. Daiga belev ish yisichenu la'achir. The Gemara says, right, it's a very pashut idea that when you have something that really worries you, you have to like spill it out. You got to talk to somebody about it. And he says that, well, we should say is Ribbon Shalom, oy vey, like, woe is to me that this is difficult. I'm really scared. I'm really, it's hard for me to keep hope. There doesn't seem to be any simple solution to my difficult situation. And you pour out your heart to Hashem. He says this is a tefillah that is powerful, that is wondrous, that really connects us to Hashem. But he says, at the same time, if we look at this a little bit closer, there's a little bit of apikoros here and kfir and not believing in God. What does that mean? He says, what do we say in this situation? We feel like there is no solution. There is nothing. There's nothing that's going to save us. And we're actually saying that to Hashem. But wait a second, we're saying Hashem does have the means. So it can't be both ways. If he said, really, the approach of ours should be one of more of and I think this is where he's getting to, is the simcha part of it, that we're coming from Hashem, and we're not saying that that there is no answer. What we're saying is, I don't have an answer, but Hashem, I know you do. I'm standing in front of Hashem, who has the ability to do anything. All the solutions are in his hands, and he also has, for sure, not without a belief safek, there's a pitaron for my situation as well. He brings another mashal, but let's keep going, because so that's Gimel, where he's talking about Emuna, and I think he's, again, it feels like he's sort of getting back to Simcha, that the Emuna brings us to Simcha. But let's see how he develops this. So he says, Hasimcha ino achas me puolos hanefesh amikra hakareba. So simcha is not an action. You can't create simcha through activity. It's not something that simply happens to you. Elihi etzem tuchunas hanefesh tiva keshein ma sheyapil aleha listos metuchunaso ativis. He says that we are, what are we? We're a soul, and the essence and the internal makeup of the soul is to be happy. And that is true. He says that's the nature of the soul, as long as there's not something that darkens us, that leads us into a different mood or into a different, state of mind. Hanefesh ne'etzalahi me'olamos ha'yonim shekom etziosam hi hatova shlemos tanugim shel kedusha. He says, where does the nefesh come from? The nefesh it comes from the highest worlds, that everything there is great, it's complete, it's tanug, it's enjoyment, it's kedusha. And so everything in those alamos is simcha. Tzva Hashemayim Zulas Shira. This is in the riot. This is what do we see about the Malachim? The Malachim are up in Shemayim. What is their avodah? What are they constantly doing? Nothing but shira. It's always shira that they're singing. Vein shira salyonin kamo adam. Hashem meorer beatzmo hargashim shal shira behis gabru al haragasha haragilim. And he says that in the malach, for the malachim, it's not something that they have to conjure up like we do. We have to sort of get ourselves under control and say, okay, I'm not worrying about all the mundane things in life. I have to think about the lofty ideas, and then I can bring myself to shira. So that's simply the essence of a malach is shira and simcha. Because their entire essence is nothing but being happy and singing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that connection that they have. V'chein hu ba'adam, the nishmas adam. And he says the same is true though for us, for our neshama, keshahaya betzurasa hativis. When we are in a very difficult situation, from the world around us, the natural world around us, we have to. That's when we have to get close to Hashem and to cling. And that's what can bring us to this idea of simcha. When we say, what does it mean when we say the pasuk Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid? Right, it says that many in many shuls. Right, that pasuk is up there. Hu dveikus v'kesher l'kadosh baruch hu b'poel. That's an active connection, an active connection that we're making to Hashem. He says we saw this a long time ago, but the Mor Nevuchim that he quoted all the way in the preface to the book, that at the time that you're davening, you're with Hashem, and Hashem's with you. That as the ancient one said, in the place that you find yourself in where you are, where your thoughts are, that's also mamish where Hashem is in that moment. And therefore, when you're davening to Hashem and you're thinking about Hashem, you're speaking to him in pleasant ways. Then you're leaving behind the world that we know, the lowly world that a physical world that we're in. When we start Shoshiras HaMalachim, and we're able to join together with the shira that the Malachim are singing, Garmi Hashemayim, Shemachmas Deveikosam B'Mitzius B'Hashem Kol Atzvam Hu Simcha V'Shira V'Tanug, and that's how we connect, and that's what brings it our simcha as well through our davening. He says, and this can also give us a tremendous insight. So he says, "Heyach efshar litzavos al hasimcha v'hari simcha hi argasha basma melavim eina le besimcha mayoat sivui al kach v'hari eina le biyadin lahatoso liyamin l'smol." He says, "How can you command us? How can we be commanded to be in simcha? Right? Even to us Hashem besimcha. What does that mean? How are we commanded to be besimcha when we're doing our avoda to Hashem when we're davening?" He says we have the control over our hearts. We can make it go one way or another. How does that? And he says there's the ancient question, right? Same idea. How can we be mitzvah to either love Hashem or to fear Hashem? She mitzvahs asay gemuros, but those are mitzvahs asay that we have. Hashem elokecha, right? An age-old question. How can we mitzvah us to love? How does it doesn't happen on its own, so how can you be commanded to do it? But tirtzu shemitzvah hi lasos maasim hamavin lidei ahava v'yira behechrach. He says the answer is that we have to do, and the mitzvah is that we do actions that bring us to ahava and to yira by necessity. V'kein kasav Rambam, the Rambam says in the Yesodei Torah, zelashona v'heyach Also, what is the path to love and to fear Hashem? He says, when we think about, all you have to do is sort of contemplate, really think about the actions, the creations of Hashem that are so wondrous and they're so great. From there itself should come fear. The fear from them of the chachma of something that we have no conception of. It's just so beyond anything that we're capable of doing. That is the year that we're talking about. Miadhu ohev umeshabech umefarer umisav taiva gedol leda Hashem agadol. He says, and that's also the love of when we see that the great and amazing things that Hashem has created. We have this taiva that we want to connect to and understand Hashem even more so. As David says, right? My soul thirsts for Hashem, the living God. It says that's what brings you to fear, to have fear, to the awesomeness of Hashem, as well as the love of Hashem. He says that's also by simcha. Once you have the love and the fear, the simcha comes along for the ride. Kaasher he deveka lekadusha v'chozeres l'metzav mitzvah hativim v'kein amru midi dabri bichvodecha home libi ododecha. And this is also what we say, and this is from Anim Zmiros, right, where it says that when I'm speaking of Hashem's honor, meaning of the greatness of Hashem, of all the things that were mishabech Hashem, then my heart is pressed against my beloved Hashem. That's what brings my heart to connect to Hashem. All right, so let's start. Hey, because he's really starting to develop this. Let's go a little bit further. We probably won't finish Hey, but let's at least get started in it. So he says, "Tefilas bakashas rach b'mamshich adam tzrachav mishamayim v'nosha mitzarasav." He says, just like in Tefilas bakashas racham, meaning that when we said that's the Rina part of davening, right? Is when bakashas racham, that's the Tefilah part. So he says, just like in the Tefilah, when we're asking for Hashem to answer our prayers, we continue to we continue to ask for our needs and to be saved from our tsaros. He says, but that also happens in Tefilas Shevach, that we also get answered. What does that mean? Because we said, you can't ask for your needs until you've already, sort of gotten your mind into the right place by davening the Shevach. So he says, he says, by the fact that we are praising Hashem for all the chesed that he does and his ability and his power and everything that he does in all the specific places and everything that we mention, now, the Gemara in Tanya says that when we say Mashiv Baruch Mordei Geshem, it actually, if we say it with the right kavanah, if we're actually thinking about what we're saying, that itself has the power to make it happen. That Mashiv Baruch, the winds will blow Mordei Geshem, and the mitra, the rains will come. But those are our tzrachav, and those are happening when we say Mashiv Baruch Mordei Geshem. Hari Afagav the Bevor Bel Gemara Shab de Makam Abakasha Al Gashomim Hu Bibracha Hatshis. Right, we only daven for the rains in the 9th bracha, or we think about it more of Parnasa. But Mashi Baruch comes in the 2nd bracha where we're talking about Shevach. We're not talking about our needs per se. But it's enough that if we daven, I think it means is if we daven properly, even in that 2nd bracha, if we're thinking about it, then Mashi Baruch Mordei Geshem should do the trick. because if we're putting things together correctly, just the order of the Shavach that we're doing, that will bring that Hashem will answer our bakasha here as well. This is a Maimer Chazal that's brought by the Nefesh HaChaim of Chaim Volozhin. He says, the Chazal say, Mahu Ekya Asher Ekya. What does it mean, right? When Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, I will be what I will be, this is when he's talking to Moshe Rabbeinu before he goes out of Mitzrayim, and Ekya Asher Ekya, and then Moshe Rabbeinu says, what do you mean? This is, because it's the Pasha Drash is that it's about, this galus and that galus. It says, Keshem Sha'atahu imi kach ani haya imcha. What does it mean, Ekya Asher Ekya? It means that just like you are with me, I am with you. That's Hashem talking to us. V'chein amar David HaMelech, Hashem tzilcha ayad yiminecha. That Hashem is our shade that protects us, ayad yiminecha, on our right side, through power. Mahu Hashem tzilcha kitzelcha. Hashem isn't our shade; He's our shadow. Right? If you start dancing around or whatever it is that you're doing, the shadow follows. Your shadow also dances around, right? And if you're crying and you're kvetching, whatever, your shadow emulates that as well. Is it just like you are to Hashem, Hashem will be for you. What does that mean? So Rav Shimshon says this is talking about, this medrash, this chazal is talking about avoda, the avoda of avodas Hashem. Shekamoshahu davuk laboro ba'avodaso kacha Kadosh Baruch Hu karav elav u'mashpia lo. Just as much as we are trying to connect to Hashem, Hashem will then connect to us and be mashpia on us and provide for us. V'huadin le'inyan hashir la'Kadosh Baruch Hu. Sheka'asher adam hadam mistakel klapi mala besimcha b'shira kach mistakel lav HaKadosh Baruch Hu umir lo panim. The more that we're happy and we're singing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more that Hashem also wants to do that for us and wants to be happy in front of us. But also inyan sha'alav hu mishor u'mishabech Kigon shemakir bislahavos HaKadosh Baruch Hu rofe cholim ayidei karosav simchaso zubabaro niftachim lo osam hasha'arin lashbia alav. The more that we are able to be happy and connect to Hashem and to recognize what that is, Hashem also recognizes inside of us that fire, that flame that's inside of us to connect to Him, and Hashem responds accordingly.